Okay, now with over 36 million, I think, downloads on the podcast, one of the biggest podcasts in the world, live on John Fredericks Radio Network nationwide. And by the way, we start in Atlanta with our own station, 1690 on the dial, starting on March 1st. Real America's Voice streamed everywhere. Also, Dish Channel 219, Comcast Channel 113, Rumble, Telegram, Pluto, Roku, everywhere. Gab. We try to meet you where we are. It's everywhere. It's ubiquitous. I need people to go to get the newsletter. How do you get the newsletter, Raheem?
It's warroom.org/join.
Warroom.org /join. I'm very good at this. Make sure that you got to get the newsletter. We've got all the polls from the show. We've got Inside Baseball about the show. You get show notes. You get it all. So make sure you join up. Everything's free. Just go log on. And we need you as a force multiplier. Push out the content. And I love the comments today from the show. Look, we won on November 3rd, a nationwide sweep. Okay? We almost took the House against all odds. We held the Senate. We won at the state legislature level. We won at the county supervisor level. We're a MAGA nation. Okay, don't let them beat you down with this psychological warfare and information warfare. It's not going to work, and I'm going to be very specific. Joe Biden, instead of playing video games up there at Camp David, should have been focusing on the second front that's opened up. Ladies and gentlemen, California is in play. California is in play. I never thought I'd say those words. I left California 10 years ago, or right after Andrew passed away. DC and to run this and to run it from the East Coast, the Breitbart operation, right? It had to be more in the action. One of the reasons was California was so far gone. California and all the Ben Shapiro and Andrew Breitbart and Stephen Miller, all those guys, Larry Elder, they all came out of California, right? I was living there at the time. I think I lived in California on and off with some stops along the way for about 20 years. I want to bring in now Tom Del Beccaro. He's former GOP chairman, former Senate candidate. The guy that in the debate, the overnight poll, he ran against Kamala Harris, beat her in the overnight poll, and beat her on the debate stage. It wasn't even close. Should have given her a standing 8 count. But Tom is heading up Rescue California, and this thing looked like a fantasy a couple of weeks ago. Gavin Newsom's going to be recalled. This was the golden boy. This was the golden child. He was going to be the nominee in 2024, right? This was the guy. Back in March, a year ago. Remember, Cuomo and Gavin Newsom were put up as the paragons of what the new Democratic Party was going to be, right? These great leaders with these radical progressive policies, but man, could they handle the COVID situation, right? They were ahead of the pandemic. Not so fast. So, Tom, come in and tell us. And Tom, this guy is a fighter, and he's got a big fight. California is the railhead of all the money. Nancy Pelosi, her rise to power came through Silicon Valley. She started shaking down the four horsemen, the investment banks in San Francisco. Then she started shaking down Silicon Valley. And this is how the oligarchs got to be so powerful and so prominent, protected by Nancy Pelosi. All the money and all the bad ideas coming out of California. Plus, if you lock down those electoral votes, you don't have to, it's not competitive. That's such a free option to be able to crush the rest of spend time up in Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. We're opening up a second front. It's absolutely breathtaking. When you talk about winning, this is where the energy is. So, Tom, walk us through exactly what's happening out there.
Well, California, and it's great to be on, Steve, is having a spate of common sense. You're right. This is where their fount of ideas are, and we know they don't work. Anybody who picks up even the most simple history book knows that. And they push everything to the edge here in California. Gavin did want to be president, and it was his goal to be president. He was going to have the first universal socialized health care, and on and on and on. And you know what? Something happened on the way to the presidency because all these policies predictably failed. And now Californians are hurting, and on a variety of issues. They can't deliver water. In October of 19, Big Tech warned them, if you can't get us consistent electricity, then we're going to have to leave. Steve, literally in this state, they run commercials at night saying, turn off your electricity at night because solar only works during the day. I am not making that up. Homelessness, job flight. And then COVID hits, and it was the last straw for a lot of people because, right, you said Gavin was going to do a great job with this. Well, we've led in shutdowns, and still are afflicted by this. And then the COVID vaccine rollout occurred, and we're last in the country. And people are just fed up here. And that's why I started supporting this recall way back in June. My own PAC, Revival.com, is one of the biggest donors to recall Gavin 2020. And then we started RescueCalifornia.org. We've raised over $2.5 million. We have surpassed the 1.6 million signature point, and we are headed in early March to about 2 million signatures, and that will be enough to put the recall on the ballot.
Okay, so how can people? How can people get engaged right now? Where do they have to go to find out more about you, more about Rescue, more about this recall? I want this audience is the most active and engaged in all media. They want action, action, action. We have a big California audience. How can people get engaged right now?
A lot of people from California have already said, "Oh, I'm so excited you're on." They need to go to RescueCalifornia.org. That's RescueCalifornia.org. We have a big fight here. We still have a $500,000 worth to raise. And with that money, we have paid signature gatherers out there who are collecting, combined with our direct mail, 100,000 signatures a week. And we need to keep up that pace all the way through the first week in March. So it's RescueCalifornia.org. And then what will happen in August, then we'll have this recall election that has just two questions on the ballot. Should Gavin Newsom be recalled? And if he is, from the list below, who should replace him? And as a result of that, it will be a heavily dominated Republican field because no Democrat wants to get in and fight with Newsom or appear unloyal. And this is an excellent chance to bring rationality to California. You see there my Fox article about the 8 reasons to do this. Look, jobs are leaving this state regularly to where low tax states, right? Ben Shapiro, both of our friends, left because of the irrational policies. Well, we're taking a stand here. We defeated their big tax increase in November. We defeated their cashless bail. Uber succeeded and can stay in the state, and RescueCalifornia.org. And, if it's a $10 donation, a $15 donation, it'll help us put on the ballot. And you're right. This is behind enemy lines in some respects. If we can bring rationality here, it can happen to the rest of the country.
The reason the mainstream media is not covering not covering this enough is that the simple fact that it is such an explosive story, and it will bleed out the Biden administration, particularly their ideas. Real quickly, I want to go. This just didn't happen. The preamble was in November, which nobody covered. Talk about, you just mentioned, but you had 3 or 4 things on the referendum, all pushed by Gavin Newsom, that all got shut down, right? And they spent tens of millions of dollars advertising, trying to push these. That was a shock to them, right? That the California citizens, including obviously many Democrats, voted against this. Walk us through those 3 that were kind of the preamble to this recall.
Well, it actually started slightly before that when in LA a big tax increase was turned down. And the answer as to why is we pay the highest taxes in the nation, but we don't get anything for it. And people are actually frustrated out here. Then the shutdown comes along and people are thrown out of work. And not just like there's no rationality like in Florida. This is just on and on and on. And it affects waiters, waitresses, busboys. I used to be a dishwasher. It affects salon owners, lots and lots of small businesses. They see the big box stores open, but they're not allowed to stay open. And stunningly, amidst all of that, Gavin pushes what would have been the biggest property tax increase in California history. He wanted cashless bail. You see how that's worked in New York, where people get arrested 3 and 4 times in a single day. And he also wanted to unionize every Uber and Lyft driver, and they fought back. They put an initiative on the ballot. The tax increase went down big. The cashless bail went down big. And now Uber and Lyft are able to operate at this according to their own business model. So that was their wake-up call in early November, and it was just after that I started this second PAC, RescueCalifornia.org, and we have been going gangbusters ever since.
Real quickly, people who haven't had an opportunity to live out there, it's not called the Golden State for no reason. It is absolutely stunningly beautiful. The people are great. It's the seventh largest economy, the seventh largest economy in the world. This is like a nation, right? This is like England. This is like the United Kingdom, right? This is a nation. It's a powerhouse. Remember when Trump first won, the tech oligarchs, remember the videos that Breitbart and Veritas had of Google and all these guys having the meetings? They wanted to succeed from the union. They wanted to succeed. We've completely reversed this. Ladies and gentlemen, this is signal. We make California competitive, and you make it competitive by recalling Gavin Newsom. It's in play. They got to spend time and effort there. Not just that, the bad ideas start getting shut down. In California, remember, Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon, California was the railhead of what is the modern Republican Party, of all the anti-communism, of taking down the Soviet Union. That all came from California. That was Nixon and then Reagan, right? The story that take down the evil empire. This was the railhead of so much that was great and is atrophied. And now it can come back. That's where you've got to get engaged. I'm not saying you got to give them any money, but what you have to do is at least give them the support, right? And if you got a couple of dollars, hit them with it. Walk us through. We got about 2 minutes. I want to just walk through the process. How many more names do you actually need? What's your benchmarks? You know, what marks do you have to hit, and when do you have to hit them?
So we need 1.495 verified signatures. We are up to about 1.6 raw signatures. In order to make sure that there's no funny business and we have that cushion, our goal is 2 million. We are gathering close, if we can continue, and if you can help us out with a few dollars at rescuecalifornia.org, we are gathering at about 100,000, just over 100,000 a week. So we can hit that 2 million number. We're going to turn in early March. The deadline's the 17th, but we're going to turn in March 9th just to make sure everything's actually at the registrar's office. And that will be a success. And I got to tell you, Steve, around the country, people are contacting me. Got contacted yesterday. Can you do this in New York? I got contacted. Can you do this in Washington State? This is breathing life into the resistance of big government and those who want accountability.
I got to tell you, when we put out that we were going to have you on the show, my phone blew up from all over the nation. People understand California's been like a separate country, right? A railhead of progressive left money and bad ideas. And the people heard out there are working class Californians, Hispanics, African Americans, whites, Asians. And this is a flood of people leaving California. The first time I think in its history it's had a net decrease in population. Tom, how do people get to you again? Do you have your Twitter handle, Gab, everything you got? Give us your coordinates right now.
Well, I'm at Tom Del Beccaro, and as we wait for Parler to come back, I'm at Tom Del. But the important thing for this is rescuecalifornia.org. That's where you can find us. You can send us information there. You know what? If we can do it here, Steve, where can't we do it?
It's the second front on the confrontation with the Biden administration. Tom, thank you very much. Look forward to having you back. I want this audience to melt down the server right now. Go to that website. Go to that website and get engaged. Get all the information. Go there and get engaged now. We need the posse. We need the posse all over it. Short commercial break. Dr. Maria Ryan. Also, Raheem's going to give us some concepts, ideas, and thoughts on Parler next.
We will fight till they're all gone. We rejoice when there's no more. Let's take down the CCP.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, we're going to go to Dr. Ryan in a second. We're going to go to New York. You know, the two foundational elements of the modern Democratic Party are New York and California. It's the reason it's so tough to beat them in national elections, and money, and since they don't have to defend that money and bad ideas flow out of there, now they're going to be in play. California, you already see, is definitely in play. Need everybody to go to that website today. Raheem, what's the situation with Parler? Is this thing really back up, or is it kind of back up, not back up? And the Gab guys are like, written on Twitter. I'm not a tech guy, as you know. But what's going on?
Well, so the news pops this morning that Parler is back up, but most people are frustrated by that news because while it's back up in terms of the availability of logging into the app, the system itself, the ability to actually send a message or read other people's messages does not appear to be back up. When you go to it, it just says error unauthorized. So maybe somebody's jumping the gun there a little bit on the report. But what stood out to me was this comment from the acting CEO, Mark Meckler, who told Just the News, we are off the big tech platform so that we can consider ourselves safe and secure for the future. He also said the platform is using artificial intelligence and human editors to police for illegal speech that violates its service agreement, but otherwise is remaining true to its free speech, no censorship roots. Now, of course, this is where a lot of social media platforms have this problem. It's finding out what your speech that is illegal, whatever. What concerns me about this, and we'll obviously ask the questions and allow Parler to have this say on these things, but what's concerning, and I'm reading some tweets and some other Gab messages this morning about it, is how do you go from being kicked off a platform 2-3 weeks ago, whenever it was, to suddenly having AI built into your system to read for illegal messages? Obviously, the company hasn't been able to build that system in for itself over 3 weeks, so they've clearly brought something else in that's sitting on top of the Parler system. I'm concerned about that. I would be concerned about that as a user, is what I'm saying. Whose artificial intelligence system is this? What is it looking for? And who is it reporting to? Because I think that one of the benefits of Parler, one of the benefits of all of these alternative systems, is that they believe in both free speech but also in privacy. So I would want to see some reassurances in that regard before I plow back in.
Mark Meckler, the Tea Party activist, he's the new CEO?
I don't know who Mark Meckler is.
Yeah, I know Mark. He's a guy from the foundation of the Tea Party, but he's not a technology guy. So it's that one's got to be looked at. But is Parler got any idea when they're going to be back up?
Well, I suspect they think they're back up this week, hence the announcement. Okay. I imagine they would have actually liked to been up this morning, but for most people,
we need
it's still not
we need
reachable.
as many platforms, many robust platforms as possible. Okay, I want to go to Dr. Maria Ryan, a CEO of the Cottage Hospital up in New Hampshire, and a PhD in hospital administration. So, Dr. Ryan, you co-host a show with Rudy on Sunday mornings at WABC. I happened to listen in yesterday, quite intrigued by what you said. Walk us through this, because we just had Tom Del Beccaro on about California being in play now. You know, Cuomo is actually ahead of Newsom as far as the love that was he was being love bombed by the media, by his brother. And I don't know, Raheem, we ought to look at, I don't know if the CNN has liability for the Cuomo shows, but I got to tell you, I'm sure the lawyer's looking at that. Of all the happy talk and high-fiving and how's mom's lasagna and, the big swab and, kidding around, while people were obviously dying under mysterious circumstances, and that's not coming from us in the war room, that's coming from Letitia James, the Attorney General, Democratic Attorney General of the state of New York. So what is going on? What actually happened? Technically, what happened, and why is this controversy about these nursing homes, Dr. Ryan?
I think it was exactly March 25th, 2020, Governor Cuomo made the decision to put COVID-positive patients back in the nursing home. So they originated from the nursing home, weren't feeling well, had to go to the hospital to see what was wrong with them. They tested positive. They may not have been in respiratory distress, so they could go back to the nursing home. But he made that decision. He made the decision. This is an important distinction. The hospital did not. This was legislated. This was one of his orders to put COVID-positive patients in a nursing home when we know our most vulnerable population for mortality is the elderly. So that was a bad decision. But did he come back from that and apologize and saying he learned more about virology and he listened to science? No. He got angry when he was questioned about it. He blamed the Trump administration, and then he covered up the numbers. Not only did the federal government ask for accurate numbers, but his own party and Republican legislators in New York said, we're hearing too much from families. We're hearing too much from nursing home administrators. Some of these numbers don't make sense. And he made the decision. Again, it's decision-making. He's got to be held accountable to not release accurate numbers. And then there's this infamous video conference that Melissa DeRosa, his secretary, had with Democratic state legislators, and they were questioning her. We've asked for these numbers. Why aren't we getting the numbers? And she basically, I'm paraphrasing, said, we apologize. We were, trying to stall the federal government probe. We didn't want to give any credit to the Trump administration or any fodder for him to tweet about. That doesn't make any sense. And
but I want to go back. By the way, Melissa DeRosa she's not just the secretary. I mean, that is a position called secretary to the governor. It's a title from obviously decades and hundreds of years ago. She's the most powerful unelected official in the state of New York. That's a power position. I believe she's the first woman to ever have it. And she's a power player. She comes from a family of lobbyists. She's been hanging around the state capitol since she was like 3 years old. She's a player and a power player in Democratic Party politics, in particular, a power player. And she was, you listen to this tape or see the tape and what came out about it, she was clearly nervous. These guys are outraged of what's going on in these nursing homes. But I want to go back to March. When this announcement was made at the time, and what's found odd about it is that you had the USS Comfort, you had the hospital ship that had gone from Norfolk up there, had been refitted and brought up there by the President of the United States. You had Javits Center that was turned into a field hospital, but you also the Army stood up field hospitals in Central Park, a big field hospital there, and others. And they virtually, what was so odd given the crisis they had, these continued to stay virtually empty and kind of use it to mock Trump, right, who had gone out of his way to do this. Remember, he came out when the day he went down to fly down by the helicopter to Norfolk Naval Station to see the Comfort off. He had talked about quarantining Wuhan after he saw the reports of the hospital in Queens on NBC, and also as the war room, we were pounding it saying, hey, you ought to quarantine New York City like Wuhan, nobody in, nobody out, nobody flying to Puerto Rico. We were adamant about that. He actually mentioned it, and Cuomo went nuts. At the time, who challenged Cuomo when he made this decision? That seemed kind of bizarre, given the fact that you had these other venues that could have clearly taken him with ICU beds out there.
I'm making the bold assertion that it was a political move because there's no common sense reason he wouldn't use the Comfort. The Comfort actually set aside isolation beds. So where Newsom with the Mercy said, I'm going to use the Mercy for non-infected COVID patients, which I never understood Newsom's decision on that. To me, he should have, again, used it for COVID patients, separating them. He had almost 13,000 nursing home deaths. Cuomo up to 15,000. It makes no logical sense. I can't go inside his mind, but I questioned it back in May. I questioned it on our show in August of 2020. Our viewers were outraged. And when we repeated with new information about the cover-up this past Sunday, our viewers again were telling us stories of their loved ones who died in the nursing home and they couldn't get any information. One of the callers talked about somebody who tripped, needed a hip replacement. So had a hip replacement. I believe the person was only in their 40s.
Yep, in perfect health.
And a lot of a lot of nursing homes have rehab beds. So you can go in there at any age to get the rehab skilled nursing care. So this person went in there, initially had daily conversations with family and friends, disappeared, ended up dying.
But this is that one, and this is what got me for your show. The callers were shocking. That story to me has got to be followed up. How they took a healthy patient and sent it to a nursing home, given that crisis at that time, given COVID, and then they died of COVID. I mean, I'd like to make sure you can verify those facts, because that one there was outrageous. We don't have time to go into the vaccine situation, but really on Biden as a hospital administrator, you got about a minute. People are asking, what is actually Biden's plan? Does it seem as confused to civilians like ourselves as it does to people inside the system like yourself? What exactly is their plan?
Almost every executive order he's done, there's confusion. Look at the immigration policies. But as a hospital CEO, he keeps saying he's going to make the vaccines more available. We've seen no concrete change in plans than the original plans we've had with vaccinating. 1A is your frontline people, 1B is those over 65, or some states are doing 75. The federal government says 75 and above in those with comorbidities. New Hampshire has chose to do 65 and above in those with comorbidities in phase 1B. But we really haven't seen any changes with President Biden from what we already had.
Okay, Dr. Ryan, real quickly, about 15 seconds. How do people follow you during the day? We know you're on the Sunday show, co-host with Rudy. How do people track you during the day?
At Maria Ryan NH and through my website, drmariaryan.com. And I have to say, when I'm on War Room, I get lots of very nice notes and information from your viewers via my website.
So everybody go there, pound it right now, give her all the insights that you can give her, all the scoops you can give her. Okay, take a short commercial break. Dan Schultz, the one and only, taking over the Republican Party from the grassroots. Next.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, we've got a lot to get to. We're going to continue on our tribute. Steve Cortez and I kicked it off with Raheem early in the show. We're going to continue with our tribute to a great American patriot, Curtis Ellis, with John Fredericks here in a moment. I want to get to, though, the project that's before us, ladies and gentlemen. Action, action, action is a grassroots takeover of the Republican Party by the deplorables. And Dan Schultz has given you a method to do that. He's been doing this for years. He's on fire right now. But I want to tell you, it's not going to be easy. He's had 75,000 hits to his website already. We want additional 200,000 by March 1st, and the people engaged. And I would like to give, he's had 75,000. I want everybody in this audience, I would love to have off the live broadcast and the podcast, 75,000 people in the next 24 hours to hit his website. Bring in Dan Schultz right now. Dan, thank you. And by the way, you become a rock star in the show. People absolutely love you, love your hits. Take it away, sir.
Thanks, Steve. Take this headset off. If you can put up slide 24, that sort of puts the problem before us in concrete terms. It's Plato's quote that one of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. And that is the case, would just say, based on who we've got in Congress and most of the state legislatures. So the next slide is slide 25, where good old Steve Bannon nailed it back in 2017 when he spoke to a conservative group. He said, obviously, we have to take over the Republican Party, but, you know, if that's so obvious, why aren't we doing it? And then what is the Republican Party? Well, it's embodied in the 168 National Committee members of the sent there by the state party committees. And if you want to change who's on the RNC, the way to do it is depicted in slide number 5. We want all of those 168 RNC members to be conservatives. We have to get every precinct committeeman slot in the Republican Party down at the county level filled with a Trump supporter, a conservative Trump supporter. And I think President Trump could have done this, but for whatever reason, he chose not to. And so I call this also in slide 23, or I wish Donald Trump would call it, the art of the precinct. And the way to take over the party is to get every MAGA person into it, Trumplifying it at the precinct level. And then when you do that, as depicted in slide 26, what happens is we'd be taking our party, which is at half strength and ideologically split. There's about 400,000 of these slots nationwide, but only 200,000 are vacant. And there's a war going on between the moderates and the conservatives. If MAGA people would fill up the 200,000 vacancies, we'd end up with a full-strength party at a 75% rate of power, have a 75% voting majority. And so if you put up slide number 6, it shows it another way. At the top are the precinct committeemen in the counties, and there's about 400,000 of these but 200,000 are vacant. And so when it comes to electing the local committee chairs, the county committee chairs, the state committee chairs, and the national committee members, we end up with a 50-50 or worse. I understand it's much worse at the RNC level. So if you go to the next slide, number 7, it shows how that changes radically when you fill up the 200,000 vacant slots with conservatives. With a 75% majority down at the county level, all of the local committee chairs, the district committee chairs, assembly district chairs would be conservatives. All of the county chairs, all of the state committee chairs of the national committeemen and the national committee women would end up being conservatives, and we'd have a national committee that was conservative. So I explain this all at my blog, theprecinctproject.wordpress.com. There's a slide number 10 shows what it looks like when you get there. If you're on a cell phone, scroll down to the bottom and click on View Full Site, and it'll look like this then, but it'll be very small. It's better to do it on a computer. But it's called theprecinctproject.wordpress.com. And off on the right-hand side, if you scroll down, I've got something for every state. Now, this is really important. For example, it's still not too late to actually get elected. For example, in Georgia and South Carolina, they're having caucus meetings in March. You can still get elected there, but you've got to show up in great numbers, take every conservative you know, and go. And then if you put up slide number 22, that's my contact information for the blog and where I am on Parler when it comes back, Cloud Hub, Gab, Twitter. Basically go into any of those platforms and search on Precinct and Committeeman and Strategy, and you'll find the group that I set up. But the best place to go is theprecinctproject.wordpress.com, and then I've also got a site with 2 cohorts, rightlanenetwork.com. That's mostly for Arizonans, but it shows what you can do on a local level to organize. And we have a chat forum in it, and we'll let conservatives in. And if you want to join the chat forum, go to rightlanenetwork.com and ask to be let in. And if we can see that you're truly a conservative, we'll let you in and let you use it.
Okay. Precinct Project. We need everybody today to go there. Everybody today's got to go there. Let's melt down this server. Let's show Dan, who's doing such laboring in the vineyard, our support. Dan, thank you so much for joining us again today. Look forward to having you back multiple times this week. Dan Schultz, Precinct Project. Need everybody listening live to go there now. On the podcast later in the day, need everybody to go and when you hear this on the podcast. Precinct Project. Thank you very much, Dan. And by the way,
thanks, Steve.
Bringing in John Fredericks, don't think that you're going to sit there and just say, in most places you just go, you become part of the precinct, you become a precinct committeeman. There's some places, like in South Carolina and Georgia, we're already hearing reports from Georgia, where they're not exactly embracing the Trump people showing up. That's going to happen. You're just going to have to, the third check on Steve Cortez's guts, stick-to-itiveness, tenacity. That's what you need, and we're going to get this done. I want to bring in now John Fredericks. John, we had Steve Cortez and Raheem were able to talk in the first hour of the show about Curtis Ellis. I know you knew Curtis Ellis is a giant in this movement, although maybe relatively unknown at the retail level, given that he was a behind-the-scenes guy and a thinker, although on your show for 10 years, on this show all the time, on the old Breitbart show I had, and even at Victory Sessions at KBC in L.A. Talk to us about Curtis Ellis.
Well, first and foremost, Steve, Bannon, Curtis was my friend. Losing him is like a part of my body is gone, like a left arm. I mean, we talked 3-4 times a week. He was with us from the beginning. Curtis was really one of the original pioneers of this movement, even before Donald Trump got on board. I'll tell you this quick story. We started this fight in 2014, Steve, fighting the Trans-Pacific Partnership Project. Remember that TPP?
Sure.
Nobody heard of it. It was in the basement in Congress. You couldn't take a picture of it. It was all secret. Obama was trying to slip it through. Every single Republican that meant anything was in favor of that when they were doing the Chamber of Commerce, Coke free trade mantra. Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, you name it, they were all in favor of it. And Curtis and I went around the country trying to expose this. Nobody cared. Here's one thing we did. We had a PAC called the American Jobs Alliance. He raised $1 million from one of the labor unions, who we really couldn't say that publicly because they would have thought, oh, he's a Democrat or whatever. And we took the money and it was his idea. He went to Trump Tower and he went to Donald Trump's office and asked him, this was in November of 2014, to cut an ad that we could run on the radio in the early primary states blasting TPP. So he goes up there with a tape recorder and a little microphone that big in this humongous off Donald Trump's office on whatever he was, the 39th floor or whatever, and puts the microphone down, gives him a script. Trump scratches some stuff out like he always does, adds some stuff in, second take, does the ad. We ran it in New Hampshire, South Carolina, Iowa, Virginia, all states that he was very competitive in, or won, and that made a big difference. So he was a pioneer. And the only other thing I just have to get in is Curtis was about the funniest guy that I've ever met, Steve. I mean, you and I laugh all the time. He had a great sense of humor. There's not a conversation I didn't have with him that I didn't end up laughing my tail off. And so he'll be greatly missed, not only as a great friend, but a real inspiration, Steve, behind this movement.
He and Navarro was running around China. He was here. All the basic elements he heard from Lou Dobbs, Curtis actually put into policies. If you go back and look at the Hofstra first debate, go back and look at the first 15, 20 minutes. President Trump came out of the corner, and he was beating Hillary Clinton about the head and shoulders on TPP. Remember, she had called the platinum of all deals or something, and he was like, boom. If he was firing off the football, that was all Curtis Ellis that gave us all the information. We made a big deal about it at Breitbart. He used to come in. Remember, Raheem, we had the Breitbart morning show. We finally got 7 days a week. Curtis would come in and co-host sometime for an hour. It's a 3-hour show, and just talk. He was banging on TPP. If you're out there in American today and have a job, a manufacturing job, you owe part of that to Curtis Ellis. Regardless of your political party, Curtis Ellis has been fighting for the American worker for decades. And this was a guy that really had thought through populism, economic nationalism, the topics that Steve Cortez said earlier are going to dominate. I was honored with his significant other. They put me on the speakerphone yesterday, and I spent like 30 minutes just reminding him of what he had done for this country. Not just what he had done for the MAGA movement, what he had done for President Trump, what he had done, but what he had done for the United States and for Lao Beijing. And I told him, when eventually the CCP falls, the Chinese Communist Party falls, and Lao Beijing and the Chinese people are finally free from that dictatorship, like being controlled by the Nazis, when they're free, they will owe part of that freedom. They're going to free themselves, but part of that will be the people that fought the CCP from the West, and Curtis Ellis is at the front line of that. They will owe part of their freedom to Curtis Ellis, who for decades was warning America about the sellout of Wall Street, the sellout of the global corporations, and that the political parties here, because Curtis started as a Democrat, the sellout of the political parties to the Chinese Communist Party. That's why he's an American hero, and that's why he's an American patriot. And for the lesson out there for this audience, you don't have to be on TV on time. I mean, he was on John Fredericks every week for 10 years. He would come on here all the time, but most of his work was behind the scenes doing policy. And Cortez was talking today about all the times they spent on the PAC, right? Most of the time he was thinking and moving ideas. John Fredericks, got about a minute.
Well, thank you, Steve, and thank you for calling Curtis yesterday. You were actually one of the final people, Steve, to talk to him before he passed, when he was able to hear and comprehend everything and was totally conscious. So I want to thank you for that. I know it meant a lot as he passed into heaven. So thank you for that. Also want to mention, and I know Curtis was a big part of this also, getting us to expand. We're starting our new radio station in Atlanta, Georgia. 5.5 million people reach. WMLB, Freedom AM 1690. You're going to be a big part of that, Steve. That launches March 1st. It's going to really change the dynamics of talk radio in Atlanta, Georgia. Anybody wants to help us out, just go to the John Fredericks Radio Show.com, johnfredericksradio.com. There's a donate button there. That's going to help us out as we continue to expand. Steve, talk radio is the final bastion of free speech in America.
No, we're going to be rolling out throughout the nation. John, thank you very much. Everybody go there, check it out. Also, Peter Navarro contacted me. He was kind of the wingman for Curtis Ellis. He's going to do a special tribute today on the 5 o'clock show. Peter Navarro, to an American hero and patriot, Curtis Ellis from the MAGA movement. Short commercial break. Lindell Recovery Network next.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
They talk about unity. What they want you to do is to submit. They want you to submit to this radical set of policies. We're going to be going through all of it every day. Talk about how you can combat it, okay? Inside the lines, color inside the lines, but we're going to color boldly. The front line of the resistance are the red state governors and attorneys general. We're opening up a second front's open in California right now. And here's the reason. Working class people got a belly full of it, right? They got a belly full of this. This is now populist nationalism versus global elitism. Don't think in the old paradigm. Think in the new paradigm. You're here to think over the other side of the hill. Tomorrow's news today. CNN's big exclusive this morning. Hey, Wuhan, it looked like it might have broken out in November, December. Whoa, when did you hear that? I think January 25th, 2020 on War Room Pandemic, okay? We're giving you tomorrow's news today. Real quickly, Raheem, any news updates and what's on your red hot podcast?
Well, firstly, I just want to say, the thoughts and tributes are pouring in now from friends and people who are influenced by the life of Curtis Ellis. Maura Moynihan, General Spaulding, Greg Autry,
wow.
Jack Posobiec, others.
That's a group of starters right there.
Lots of.
Look at the people that say great things about him and think of where they stand in this MAGA movement. The fighters are tributes to Curtis Ellis.
And in fact, one of Curtis's last articles that he wrote for American Greatness was about the future of the GOP and talking about how Trumpism must be the guiding light for the future of the GOP. I've been working on an obituary we'll have up on the National Pulse about Curtis's life and impact later on today. The thing that stood out to me most in the last couple of minutes has been this CNN lead right now, which is Biden gets his first chance to fully exercise his power. 25 days into the Biden regime, they're now saying, oh, well, with the trial gone and all of that no longer taking place, this is really Biden's first chance.
They fear the specter of Trump.
No, here's what it is. This is a reset button. The CNN is pressing the reset button on behalf of Joe Biden because of a botched first month.
You're not resetting us. Okay, we're up in the grill. And now this is one that bugs me no end. The attacks on Mike Lindell, he's a big boy. They're trying to crush him personally. The attacks on the company, I hate because of the American jobs and what they do to help the American economy and the local community up there in Minneapolis and throughout the rest of the world, rest of the country, where they got manufacturing, over in England where they got manufacturing for the European part. But what really gets under my skin is Mike Lindell's story of his road to Damascus and his giving his life. I mean, the story's crazy. Gambling addictions, alcohol addictions, crack addictions. He was a troubled individual, a deeply troubled individual, and by finding God and then eventually giving his life over to Christ changed the entire arc of his life and changed the arc of so many people's lives because he's able to get his act together and actually start the company and make it a success. But because he's supported President Trump, and particularly he's obsessed with, as we are, this steel. Now, he's got a different take. He's more obsessed with the computer part, which is fine. We're more with the low-hanging fruit. But, and I'm glad we did that 3-hour show, the thing that gets me is the Recovery Network, which is to help addicts. People are really, when you think about it, are at the end of the line between taking their own life or just destroying their own life in some homeless situation or trying to go on this tough road to recovery. And it's a very tough road, as every family out there knows. They're trying to destroy that. And we've been honored to meet Melissa Huray, who's the executive director, and she's a fighter. She's not going to back down. She's like Lindell. All the people over there are like Lindell. They got the guts and stick-to-itiveness. She's written a piece. We're going to get up on the site and put it out later. But Melissa, I want you to talk about your piece and what has happened since you first started coming on the show and talking about it publicly about these attacks to destroy the Christ-centered, God-centered, church-centered recovery network.
Great to be with you, Steve. You know, people think they know Mike Lindell because they see him on TV hugging a pillow and doing demonstrations for products, and they think that if they come against him enough, he'll get tired and give up. But what they don't realize is this major call that God has placed on his life. He's much more than the My Pillow guy. He's been anointed to help save addicts. And I've been given the gift of discernment, and I can be naive and a little benevolent here and there, but God always shows me who people are. He eventually always shows me, and he has shown me the real Mike Lindell. The Mike Lindell I see is a champion for the underdog. I mean, you just look at him. He hires former addicts. He hires people who maybe are still struggling. He hires felons, maybe those deemed unemployable by a lot of the world. And not only that, but he looks at people and sees their potential. He sees, what could you become? And many people find themselves within the company working their way up. So if you just read his memoir, as you mentioned, Steve, it's mind-blowing. I knew a little bit of his story, but it wasn't until I read that I saw the whole picture of what God had done in his life. And this isn't just something that he came up with a few days ago, this idea for a recovery network. I mean, this was way back in his using days. And that's what's so amazing is that God works with us within our mess. He doesn't wait till we get cleaned up and slicked up to do something with our lives. Back then, when Mike was smoking crack, he was talking to his friends and saying, I'm going to have this platform one day. I'm going to come back and help you come out of this. And he knew that God had told him this. And when God tells you something, you don't run from it, you run with it. And that's what he's done. So this memoir, I mean, this is just a culmination of everything God's been telling him. And what I've been saying all along, as I've been so blessed to come on your show, is that the world isn't going to take this out. Cancel culture isn't going to take this out. God has his hand upon it. And we have these Operation Restoration videos on there too. I spoke with Paul Lavelle last night. Amazing, amazing patriot warrior. He created this program especially for the Lindell Recovery Network. The videos are phenomenal. And I don't know if people might think, oh, they're just videos. They're not. They're powerful. They're anointed. The Holy Spirit speaks through them. Paul was a little worried the videos might get lost in translation or watered down. And he prayed about this. He prayed, and God showed him that the Holy Spirit can work through these videos. So it's going to be life-changing, people that go through this Operation Restoration course. And they're going to meet hope matches, people like them. I mean, we've had enough treatment as usual. We have 23 million addicts in the country, and so many of them are not helped. So many of them, secular treatment failed them, or they don't have the money to go to a $30,000 treatment program, or they have no insurance. We need another way to reach people who are falling off the map, who are on the fringe. And not only that, but to lead them to Jesus. And Mike is unashamed of that. That's his mission and his call. But within that, to meet people where they are and connect them with people like them. I mean, when I was deep in my addiction, I didn't think there were women like me out drinking to blackout every night. I thought that was shameful. I wanted to hide that. If I had known there were people like me, professionals doing that, it would have changed a lot.
Melissa, we got a hard out. Give us right now how everybody can go to this network. We have an action audience. You got 15 seconds. Tell them how they go right now and what they can see. LindellRecoveryNetwork.org. Go there. If you have questions, if you want to know how to get involved, support at LindellRecoveryNetwork.org. And you can go watch Mike's documentary at michaeljalindell.com. Okay. We'll be back at 5. We're in pandemic.